everyone. This is a Leadership with Heart podcast, and this is Heather Younger, your host. Employee experience is powered by emotions. Managers and or leaders within organizations get to choose which emotions they unleash from within the people they lead. Leaders, meaning supervisors or above in an organization, drive much of the positive or negative emotions by their actions or inactions, their words, or what they fail to say. When a manager chooses their words and their actions carefully, they exhibit great emotional intelligence. These managers are often thought of as leaders who care, or as I like to call them, leaders with heart. This special brand of leader drives engagement and loyalty simply by being themselves. Are these leaders perfect? Absolutely not. It is in their awareness and sharing of some of their imperfections that we realize their brilliance. In this podcast, I ask you to see yourself in the stories my guests tell about times when they were not the best versions of themselves, but how they used their hearts to guide them to a place of deeper connection with their teams and heightened leadership prowess. Enjoy. Hi, everyone. This is Heather with the Leadership with Heart podcast. I'm just really thrilled today to have Karen Weeks on the show with me. She and I have been kind of going back and forth, and interestingly enough, she was trying to have another leader in her organization be on my show, and all of a sudden I'm like, why aren't you on my show? Like, all the stuff I see out there and on LinkedIn and the universe makes me think you should be the one on the show. And so I reached out to her saying, yeah, I think you're the leader with heart and in hiding. Leader with heart in hiding. And now you're coming out. So here we go. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you. It's so great to be here.
So where are you right now in your leadership journey?
It's really interesting because I really felt like I kind of fell into leadership. I think partially because of being in an HR role, you're always working with other people and helping them in their journey, and you sort of lose track of your own. So I am thrilled to be the VP of people for a startup tech company here in New York City. I've led larger HR teams, even though mine right now is smaller because we're at a startup stage. And I all of a sudden realized, oh, wait, now I'm the leader within our organization. I'm the one people are looking to. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit more as we talk about that moment in your leadership journey where you struggled. Because there was that moment I said, oh, wait, I'm actually the leader in this situation. So I love what I do. I've been doing it for almost 20 years now. And I really, truly see myself as a leader for the whole organization, whether it's my direct team or the other folks across the other teams as well.
Oh, I love that. And what I always say that, like, be the change we're seeking, or that like leadership doesn't require a title and like all of those types of things. Right. And so it's interesting. I will be interested to hear that story, but thinking through, most people think when I say leader that it's only talking about people who manage people, and up until maybe like a year ago, that may have been mostly true. But as I evolve and as we all evolve, as people, there's just this wake-up call that happens. And I notice that the messages that I put out there resonate with folks who do or don't manage people, either or. And it seems that there's a need right now for all of us to step up and to say, we are those people. We are the person that's going to move this forward, that's going to move the change forward and things like that. So that's exciting. I'm proud of you for just getting to that point. We all have to at some point, right?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting because, again, going back to, I was looking at it for other folks, as I did career pathing or ladders for different roles, we would talk about you don't have to be a manager to be a leader. A lot of engineers don't want to be managers, so they become architects or things that are just much more senior individual contributors. And in those role descriptions, we would talk about team leader, culture champion, all the things that we actually look for in our people managers. And yet it was important for them to have it even if they didn't manage people. So again, looking at it for others, and it took a while for me to realize, oh, that actually applies to me as well.
Well, that's awesome. Oh, so I'm curious, what do you think? So those who have reported to you in the past or report to you now, what would they say about your leadership style? How would they refer to you in your leadership style?
I think, or I hope that they would say that, first of all, I'm very approachable. I want you to see me as a human. I feel very important that we are all humans in this journey together. Yes, we happen to work together versus being part of a hobby or a club. But at the end of the day, we are humans coming together all with the same goal. So I want to get to know you. I want you to be able to talk to me about things that are going on in your life. And I want to be very empathetic and approachable in that sense. I think the other thing that I hope people would say is that I'm very supportive. I want to know what's important to you, whether that is in your career and things that you're trying to achieve in your career, whether that's in your life, and you need more flexibility because you're trying to become a parent or you're trying to build your first house, or I don't know, whatever the thing that's happening in your life. But what are things that are important to you, and how can I help you get there? How can I be supportive to help you get there?
I love that. So I'm curious to know though, where does your drive to lead come from? And for most of us, we there's some play. It starts with something. There's like, we can, oh, it's this exact time or this person or this event. So I'm curious to know what yours is.
And it's interesting because if I look back on my childhood, I was extremely shy. And I did not, even on my wedding day, the thing I was most stressed about was walking down the aisle because everybody was going to be looking at me. And so in general, I did not want that spotlight. But what I did realize was that looking, especially doing some self-reflection and looking back on it, I was always trying to bring people together. And I wanted people to have a shared experience or a shared journey and for them to enjoy it. And I think that's a lot of what leadership actually is bringing people together, supporting them, helping them achieve their goals. And you may do it more flashy because you're more extroverted and you want the spotlight and all of that, or you may do it a little more sort of manipulating things on the side and getting people there through influence. And so when I look back on it, being a stage manager back in school, and that's what I studied in college, rallying friends together to put on a show or whatever thing I was doing, that was actually demonstrating leadership, not being class president or anything like that.
Interesting. Okay. I love it. Well, I think the key is, number one, we all have our own journey, and we land on that spot where we realize we have to be the one. Somebody's got to do it. Not everybody wants to, like you talked about the engineers. I've had that experience. I've coached engineers before, and sometimes there are ones who lead just perfectly fine, and then some that are like, no, thank you. I'll just deal with my triggers and my other things that I have to my whatever they are when it comes to engineering, right? So, and that's okay. I think that's all right. And even having said that, they may not want to manage people, but they still are leading in some way, shape, or form. And that's the thing I think I want us to get to at some point.
I think especially whenever I do disc exercises or Myers-Briggs or whatever the thing is that you like, the thing that's so important is that anybody can be a leader. Any profile can be an accountant, a marketing person, whatever. It's more about knowing your style and how you're going to use that to be a better leader, not that someone who is more introverted or someone who's more analytical or whatever can't be a leader or will be a better leader than someone else. You're doing it in your own style, but it's important to know what that style is.
That's interesting, because even as I'm writing this book and kind of summarizing different things, and of course, there's not everybody I'm interviewed have been extroverts or one or the other, and so, but the interest, and that's a good. I'm probably going to have to now. I'll make that little note in there because it doesn't require a certain personality to be a leader. I think it's almost like there are some similar North Stars or some similar whys behind why people are leading. And this idea of caring leadership is definitely a journey, because not everybody starts there. Yeah. But everybody thinks they're there or wants to get there, but they don't. But it's a journey, and we're not mostly all there yet. So,
well, I love. That's why I love the way you talk about this about leadership with heart, is because I think back in the day, that was a bad thing, having feelings and talking to people like humans, like, nope, I'm their manager. It's supposed to be business only, either because they were afraid to or they misunderstood. Actually being human and showing that side of you is what will make you a better leader. Vulnerability, approachability, empathy, being willing to try something and fail and try again. Those are what's making good leaders these days. And that's all based on who you are as a person and how you, think about other human beings.
I love that. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think it's important, and my voice is not the only one, but I think it's just one that we all have to have a voice. And I think that if we can continue to have people talking about this stuff, had Brene Brown, who jumped on the screen at the screen, literally, with her TED Talk and all those things that she had done, and really brought kind of this idea of vulnerability up to the front. Although obviously we had been there and we've kind of been that space, but lately it's really been big. And so I think it's critical. And the idea of, admitting your mistakes and all of that, that's a big part of leadership and vulnerability is that. And so, yeah, I appreciate that. And I think that it's definitely valid. Okay. So I'm curious, Is there ever been a time, and if there is, because I'm pretty sure for every one of us there is, if someone told me no, I'd be like, hey, I'm not sure you should be on the show. You're not able to admit your mistakes. That's not very good. But is there ever been a time when you were not the best version of you? Maybe you don't, at that point, you were not a leader with heart. You didn't consider yourself to be maybe highly emotionally intelligent, or you just didn't call on all the components of emotional intelligence really well. I'm curious. And then, tell us the story and then tell us how you came out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are two examples that I think of. One is I was the HR business partner for a client services organization, and we had someone who was stepping into a manager role in an interim basis. I can't remember exactly. Someone was on leave, or I forget what the reason, but it was just going to be for a finite time. And I sat there going, oh, well, I don't want to feel like she's being given something and then having something taken away. We're not going to include her in trainings or other things that managers get to do. And I was thinking it more of a protection because, like I said, you give something and then it feels like you're being taken away. And I was already worried about that. So I overcorrected and didn't include her on those things. And then I got the feedback that she felt left out, and how am I going to be set up for success even in this interim stage if I'm not involved in that stuff? And then how do I also have the credibility with my team if they see all these other managers go into this, training or whatever, and I'm not going? And so it was really this moment of I was being too analytical about it and almost too protective of her versus having an honest conversation and saying, hey, we want you to be involved in these trainings. We're going to, give you insight into things that other people don't normally have. We realize this is just an interim position, but it'll give you the chance to have that exposure while you're in this role. And then when you're not, we'll figure out, how to take that step when we get there. And I really missed that piece because, again, I was trying to be overprotective of her. And so that was a real learning for me was if we are putting someone in a manager role, they need to have the maturity to have that conversation. And I need to be open enough with them to say, hey, this is what we're going to try. Let me know how it goes. Let me know if it doesn't feel right. And then we can course correct accordingly versus assuming I'm doing the right thing without ever even talking to her.
Yeah. I was just talking to someone about that on a previous podcast today. And what I was saying is, and he was saying, I'm very direct and I tell my team exactly like what's happening. And I said, it's funny because what happens often is that organizational leaders will try to protect. And this is actually, it's also largely true with HR too. We try to curate messages and communications to employees that we think, quote unquote, protects them, right? Because maybe they can't handle it. Yeah. But in the end, I think we discount their intelligence, not just IQ, but EQ, their ability to deal and adapt with changing environments, right? All of those things. So, again, kudos to you for realizing that. And even if you weren't aware in the moment, you were able to reflect on it and say, okay, I bet you it's going to be a cue. Or has it been a cue? I'm curious. Has it been a cue for you since then to go, oops, I feel like it's coming on again, or I might be being overprotective again. Did it stop you again?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it definitely made me more aware and more conscious of having the conversations. And I think it goes back to, why feedback is important or why having tough conversations is important. It's so much better to have that conversation than avoid it or not have it because you think you're doing the right thing. And so I think there's been a couple of other times where, again, my gut is to protect someone. And I go, no, I think I need to have this conversation with them because I'd rather have them be part of the decision than make the decision for them. And to your point, most people, at least, you hope most people will be adults about things. They'd rather hear tough stuff or confusing stuff or even saying, I don't know, than not hearing anything. Because when you hear nothing, you fill in the gaps with negativity every single time.
So true. So true. I have to put that on a quote card somewhere. But it's true. I've heard that so many times and it is so true that, so I think the key is we've hired them. We put in the time, the hard work to hire them. We may have even been training them. So we have to have the faith and the trust in them to know that they can handle the truth. Yes. And I'm not saying say it in a way that's hurtful, say it in a way that's damaging, say like there could be a way to say it, but it still needs to be the truth. The truth is what the truth is.
Yes.
And I would love to see more organizational leaders, including those in HR and outside, being okay with that, because it gets very uncomfortable. I work with clients, HR is mostly my client, and I work with them, and I'll sense a lot of unease if I'm kind of suggesting an openness or telling more than maybe they want, because they don't know how they're going to respond or whatever. They're making assumptions, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's critical for us to evaluate who we brought on the team, what their abilities are, given that they've been there, our trust level for them. And if we don't trust them, then did we not hire well?
Yes.
So I think we need to kind of do some self-reflection on that, because then our communications on the other end should be pretty darn transparent with a tiny bit of filter around it.
Well, and I think too, if you go back to whether it's company values or your employee promise or whatever you sort of call it, depending on your organization, if you have an organization that has direct communication or open and honest, or, Order Groove, one of Order Groove's values is we're comfortable being uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. So we might have an uncomfortable conversation, but that's going to be okay, because in theory, you are a culture champion and we hired you because you're willing to demonstrate our values. And it doesn't mean the conversation is not going to be hard or awkward or whatever, but that's part of our values, is to have those uncomfortable conversations. And to your point, if someone isn't able to do that, then assuming we've done as best we can, then that's a reflection of, is the person the right person for this team today?
Yep. And then even just evaluating hiring practices, the initial stage of just bringing someone in, because if they weren't, I'm not saying we're all going to be 100% right. Again, everything's a journey. So we're not going to be 100% spot on with any hire. But we have to evaluate not just ourselves individually, but organizationally, what are our practices for making sure there's value alignment in the hiring process. And so maybe it's not rigorous enough, so that then when we get to the point where we have to tell them or break that news to them, they can take it, because it is along with, like you said, and I love that value. That is awesome. Right? We might as well just say it up front, because being comfortable being uncomfortable. I get that a lot in the morning with my workouts, and she's always saying, be comfortable being uncomfortable, be comfortable being uncomfortable. But the idea of just putting it out there, that's a level of direct communication. You're putting out, here's our value, and it's a value that's a tough one. And so are you going to be able to take it? And let me give you an example of what take it means. And you can give them examples of what that could look like in your organization. And then, you can read their body language to say so how would you respond to that? Or would you be okay with being dead in the middle of that kind of interaction?
Yeah.
And you can see how they respond, right? And that's okay, well, maybe I don't think they're the right fit, because we're at a place where we have constructive conflict. We have managed chaos, or whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
And they need to know and be aware of that. So I love it. Okay, so for those who are listening, who either could be at a crossroads in their leadership journey, or just need a little extra motivation to get them through the week, what might be a couple pearls of wisdom or nuggets that you might leave them with today?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think one thing that I wanted to share is be your authentic self. So people know when you're faking it. And another story that came to mind as I was thinking about our conversation today was, there was a situation where we were going through an HR leadership change. And in theory, our job is to coach others. And so when it happened to our team, it was very difficult to work through. And I was trying to be the cheerleader. I was trying to say, it's okay, we're going to get through this. And people were looking at me as no, this is, what up. This is not good. What are we going to do about this? And I had to remove that role I thought I had to play and say, something, you're right. This is upped. We are figuring this out. Let me share what I can share. I can't share everything, but let me share what I can share. We're in this together. We will figure it out. It's going to be okay. And just hearing that change in my voice, knowing that I was acknowledging what was happening, showing that authenticity and that we're in it together really made a difference. And I think we were kind of talking earlier about, being human and showing that vulnerability. I think sometimes managers and leaders, again, always have the best intentions, but they try to protect people and they try to protect themselves. And so I think if you can be your authentic self, that's going to go way further than any book you've read. And look, books are great. We've all read and written great books, but be the person you are, take all that into you and figure out who you are. So I think authenticity is really key. And then the other one is ask for advice, ask for help, brainstorm with other people, my HR peer group is my lifeline, especially right now as we are all going through things we have never gone through before. We meet every Tuesday at lunch and say, what's going on in your world? How can we help? And so don't be afraid to ask for help. And I think those are the two things that I've learned a lot throughout my leadership career that really help define who I am, and I hope help other people as well.
Those are two big ones. I think we sometimes will say authenticity is overused, but I really don't think so. I don't think the word can be oversaid. It's like we were talking earlier with this other gentleman. It was about doing the right thing even when it's when it's uncomfortable, and I don't think me saying that 25 times in a row is even too much. I just think there's some just certain things that we should all be living by. And I think that one is one, which is authenticity. I think the other thing is, like you talked about, I think there's a level of when you're seeking out help, there's a level of self-care involved, because we have to be able to manage our own minds first. And because the direction, what we think about is what we, walk in the direction of. And so the more we start, wondering, going in this direction that's not congruent with our values, not congruent with what we want our direction of, either personally or from the organization perspective, we walk in that way. There's an incongruency there, and it's not going to be good. So I just love all of it. So I really appreciate it. For those who have been listening, I've got some nuggets here myself. If you found it great value listening into my conversation with Karen, please do share it far and wide. And then also don't forget to write a review on either Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. And that is because there are a lot of leadership podcasts. I think there's something different here because we're revealing the parts of leaders that don't always get out in the level of vulnerability that's there. And so I would be really appreciative if you would do that. And this has been really one. I'm just thankful for you, Karen, for coming on and just being so straightforward, so transparent and open with us, and just sharing your gifts. So I want you to know that I appreciate you for that.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me. As you know, I've been following you for a while as I was trying to get someone else on your podcast. So I'm so glad we had a chance to connect, and hopefully this was helpful for everyone listening today.
Thank you, everybody, for joining the Leadership with Heart podcast. Have a great one. Thank you for listening to the Leadership with Heart podcast. You can grab the show notes by visiting customerfanatics.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter.